was essentially a scramble for the continent of Africa. Colonizers looked at this continent that was already so full of vibrant life in centuries-old communities and decided that it was broken, something that they needed to fix. But more than that, they saw the immense untapped resources. It was a chance to become unimaginably wealthy by hoarding those resources from the very communities that they exploited to get them. And no symbol, no object captures this idea better than a diamond. Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Ella and I create video essays and deep dives over politics, fashion, culture, really whatever I'm interested in that week. And this week we are doing a little bit of a deep dive on the history of the De Beers Diamond Company, how it was founded, the impacts it had on different countries in Africa. I was kind of more introduced to this when I was researching for my Reconnecting with My Closet or Reconnecting with Our Closet video. I saw information about Botswana taking hits to their economy with the increased interest in lab-grown diamonds. And I knew about the blood diamond, conflict diamond discussions and debates online. I was never really somebody that was in the market to be buying diamonds, so it just not really was ever something that was on my mind, to be completely honest. But when I was researching that video, I kind of read a little bit about this and I was like, that's interesting. So here we are. Today we have sweet cinnamon chai for our tea. It's very good and yummy. I have it in this cute little mug. There's a little like snail in here. You can kind of see him. But there's tea in here. I don't want to spill it. Let's get into this deep dive. So what is De Beers? To understand that, we need to go back to a family farm in South Africa. The farm was owned by two Dutch-speaking brothers, Diederik Arnoldus and Johannes Nicholas De Beer. Now, the Dutch were some of the first colonizers that attempted to settle in South Africa around 1652, according to Encyclopedia Britannica. So I believe that the brothers grew up there, but they were of Dutch descent. And in 1871, there was a rich diamond discovery on their land. It ended up becoming almost its own little section of the Big Hole Mine that was famous in Kimberley, which Kimberley is a town that was essentially built around this 250-meter deep hole for diamond mining. Yeah, diamond minings, yeah. Mining diamonds. A 240-meter deep hole for mining diamonds. Thank you. This mineral rush brought as many as 50,000 people to the region in hopes to find their own wealth. And it unveiled a treasure trove of other precious minerals like gold, coal, and platinum. Surprisingly, though, the brothers actually saw this as a big disruption to their farming lifestyle, and so they sold their land to investors and walked away. The land started to be divided into claims where men would be able to get as many as one or two, and they were named the De Beers mining claims. Now, once you got your claims, it was essentially a free-for-all. Individual miners with their simple tools would be picking away at the ground, at the land. But once you get to a certain level, you start needing more expensive machinery. You would need pumps to keep water out or even elevators to get the dirt up. And this is kind of where the game started to change. Cecil Rhodes was a man who was born in England, who, as Britannica notes, wasn't really meeting his family's standards and was sent to South Africa in 1870. He, after a certain amount of time there, eventually succumbed to the diamond frenzy and moved to Kimberley in 1871. Now, when he was initially sent to South Africa, he was sent there to meet up with his brother, who was already established there. They both ended up moving to Kimberley together, but apparently after some time, his brother kind of got bored or wanted to change his trajectory of life and ended up leaving. But Cecil Rhodes spent his time between South Africa and Oxford attempting to build this empire. Rhodes was a businessman. As a report from NYU explains, he basically saw this as an opportunity. Digging on this larger scale was pretty hard for individuals, so these small claim holders were essentially forced to either merge or they had to rent the expensive equipment. Rhodes came from a wealthier family, and him and his partners could afford what others could not. And they systematically began buying up these land claims and consolidating power. He even named his company, established in 1880 after the original farm and claims, De Beers. Fast forward to 1888, he ends up buying out his rival, Barney Barnato. Apparently, Barnato's shareholders wouldn't really approve the merger, and so Rhodes liquidated the company, and De Beers purchased its assets for 5 million euros, which, from what I saw, it said 25 million today. I don't know. I put in a calculator and it gave me a completely different number. So all I know is it's a lot of money today. And like I said, this was Rhodes building his empire. And unfortunately, this economic boom essentially financed some of the most brutal systems of segregation. Rhodes really saw the power of a monopoly and topped it all off with a cartel. The Lyman, oh my god, can I speak correctly? The London Diamond Syndicate. So, what's a cartel? I feel like due to media, maybe this is just me, whenever I think cartel initially, it was always immediately tied to drugs. But that's not always the case. A cartel is an association designed to control supply and keep prices high for anything they want, for things like diamonds. De Beers was not just mining diamonds. They controlled the entire flow. From the moment that the diamond was pulled from the ground to the moment it is sold to the customer. And at the company's peak in the 1980s, De Beers controlled almost 90% of the global diamond market. And as cartels go, they maintain this control through pretty ruthless practices. The St. Antoninus Institute, I feel like I just butchered that. St. Antoninus? They describe the selling process of a De Beers diamond, or diamonds. A De Beers employee would take a distributor into a small room and present a prepackaged bag of diamonds. The retailer couldn't pick and choose. It was take the whole bag or leave it. And if you refused or make a low offer, you risk being cut from the supply entirely. And again, from the St. Antoninus Institute, they argue that cartels are against freedom of enterprise. They force possible competitors to obey, often under financial or even physical threats. They're victimizing everybody, from competitors to the communities they exploit. And the exploitation was and is profound. The wealth that was being extracted, it financed the seizure of immense land in South Africa for the British Empire. It prolongs civil wars and funds violent rebel groups, creating the market for blood diamonds. These are gems that are tainted by violence, mass killings, and child labor. The human cost for unethical diamond mining is staggering. Let's look at a couple of examples like Sierra Leone and Zimbabwe. In Sierra Leone, as documented by Stanford University, De Beers legally took control of the diamond prospects for about 99 years in 1935. But after independence in 1961, diamond smuggling essentially just became a huge political problem, from everything I read. Reports were saying that a Prime Minister, Syca Stevens, nationalized the mines and used them for personal and political profit. And by the time that De Beers left in 1984, the stage was essentially set for a devastating civil war that was fueled by conflict diamonds. Just a very not great example, but clear example of colonial forces going into a country, acting like they're helping, only just to leave it destroyed. Colonialism left Sierra Leone destroyed in so many ways. There was a damaged economy, minimal social services, and very few educational systems. They entered, exploited the resources, and are making the people clean up the mess. Lena Yumin writes, to develop infrastructure, the newly independent nation began loan arrangements with the International Monetary Fund in 1967. The nations leading the IMF, namely the United States, Japan, and other wealthy countries, subsequently took control of Sierra Leone's economy and wrangled away the nation's freedom, profit, and power once again. In the 1980s, the conditions of IMF loans further deteriorated the economy and set the stage for civil unrest. To decrease the government's debt, the international body suggested that Sierra Leone's authorities lower public sector spending. However, this diminished the nation's ability to fund basic social infrastructure for healthcare, education, and more. While illicit diamond traders gained wealth from Sierra Leone's mines, the general populace remained in situations of dire poverty. In the mid-1980s, around 80% of the population lived below $1 USD per day. In exchange for the loans, the countries must follow the IMF conditions. Sounds like just a new form of imperialism and colonialism to me. Many critics claim that the IMF is a neo-colonial institution that uses its power in order to keep certain nations impoverished and keep other nations super powerful and wealthy. Then there's Marange, Zimbabwe. In 2006, there was a vast diamond discovery there, and according to Fair Planet, over 1,000 families were forcibly relocated to make way for the mines. A villager, Don Mesfo, told Fair Planet, "We were promised compensation and title deeds to our new houses by the diamond companies. All these promises never materialized. The government took over, but the problems seemed to remain." Farai Mangu of the Center for National Resource Governance works to help these villages. They're raising issues with the Kimberley process, which is an international organization meant to stop conflict diamonds. But as researcher Hans Burkett points out, there are many flaws with the Kimberley process certification. It really only defines their conflict diamonds as those diamonds that have affiliations with rebel movements. It doesn't really account for the human rights abuses by governments or by environmental destruction or anything caused by mining. This is an international problem because, as Burkett points out, consumers often have no idea where these diamonds are coming from. Stones from places like Marange are sold across the globe with their origins long erased. And it's all the same whenever we go out and we buy stuff for our home, clothes, jewelry, anything. I feel it's very rare in my opinion, mainly because I didn't do it either, that consumers take a moment and they really think about the process of how it ended up in front of them at this moment. We as consumers need to start really tapping back in with how our goods are made and the processes behind them and we need to stop accepting people being treated terribly for these things. So where are we today? Where is De Beers? The landscape is beginning to shift a lot. Like I said, the conversation around conflict diamonds and blood jewels is pretty prominent, and De Beers has faced some issues like antitrust charges in the US. They've also formed some partnerships like a 50-50 joint venture with the government of Botswana, which the New York Times and the Wilson Center do point out some benefits, like moving diamond sorting jobs to the country of Botswana for its citizens. But the contrast is still very stark because in 2021, the UAE traded about $22.8 billion in rough diamonds, while many miners are still earning less than $1 a day. And surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, the biggest challenge to this old diamond empire has come from the lab. The lab-grown diamond industry is pretty much booming right now, and it's estimated to reach about $59.2 billion in 2032. And by 2022, De Beers' market share had plummeted to just 29%. The monopoly is broken. This shift has been pretty disruptive that big names in the ethical diamond debates like Anna Mike Anderson of Miadonna and Company has reported facing sneering, online threats, and even potential lawsuits from the traditional industry. The story of the diamond is colonialism in a nutshell. It began with the De Beers brother. It was absolutely supercharged by Cecil Rhodes' imperial ambitions and was sustained by a system that has prioritized profit over human dignity. And unfortunately, it's essentially a story that has been written into the very ground of Africa, from the big hole in Kimberley to the disrupted lives in Marange, Zimbabwe. But it's also still ongoing. Like I said, with the increase in interest in lab-grown diamonds and with the rise of people's interest in ethical consumerism, the powers are shifting. The question is now, for us as consumers, which way are we going to go? So this was just a kind of a little fun deep dive that I wanted to do. I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on the diamond industry. Let me know in the comments. I found this very fun and interesting to make. If you have any information that you would like to share, please leave it below. All of my sources are linked in the description below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more video essays. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye!